Hi guys, I've got an exciting video planned for you today in that I'm going to be comparing 4 popular Sax clip-on mics specifically for live use, and we stock all 4 of these mics here at sax.co.uk. Now this is mainly going to be a comparison of the sound that these microphones produce, but at the same time I'm going to touch on other aspects such as the build quality, the practicality of the mics, and perhaps issues such as feedback resistance. So first of all, why should we even go for a clip-on sax mic and not just a fixed mic on a stand? Well, the most obvious thing here is that with a clip-on sax mic, you have this fixed position where the microphone is permanently a set distance from the bell of the saxophone, which just gives us complete freedom as sax players. I mean, it's the most obvious thing, right? And this is the reason why most of us would go for one of these mics as opposed to just playing in front of a fixed mic. Also, I like the idea that we would own our own microphone. It's very practical. It fits into a tiny little bag normally. We can put it in with our gig stuff, take it to the gig, and you know exactly what you're going to be using. You know, if you turn up to a gig without one of these mics, a clip-on mic, then you're just at the mercy of perhaps whatever the sound engineer gives you. And sometimes it can be fine. They might give you a Shure SM57, which are actually very good microphones to use. But again, it's fixed, it's on a stand. We have the issue of always trying to be precisely in front of the microphone at the right distance, which can present its own challenges. So from the practical point of view, these little clip-on guys are absolutely fantastic. I should also say that all 4 mics I'm demoing today are condenser style microphones as opposed to dynamic microphones, which is to say that they can deal with more complex sounds and perhaps a greater range of frequencies, unlike dynamic mics, which are more geared towards louder sounds, you know, such as percussion instruments and what have you, and they tend to be better at dealing with higher sound pressure levels. So condenser microphones, great for recording of the saxophone and great for live use, as I'm about to demonstrate now. Okay, so let's take you through the microphones in turn. So first of all, we have the AKG C519M mic. And there we go. And this is the wired version. It is also available as a wireless setup, but for the purposes of testing, we're just going to simply use the wired version. It's exactly the same microphone. And next in line, we have the new Cloud Vocal iSolo mic, which is freshly new into our stocks. I'm very excited about these guys. This is actually a wireless microphone. It doesn't actually come in a wired format at the moment that I'm aware of anyway. So I'm just going to be testing it via the receiver, which is going straight into our interface. So that's second in line. And then we have the DPA 4099 mic. This is a wired mic. Again, you can actually use this in a wireless fashion should you choose. You can combine with various receivers and transmitters and what have you, and we sell these bundles on our website. But for the purposes of this video, I'm just going to be testing the mic alone. And then finally, and the most expensive of the bunch, we have the AMT LS mic. This beautiful looking mic here. And again, we sell this in a wireless format, but I'm just going to be testing it in the wired situation here, just because it's slightly easier to do for the purposes of this video. So let's get going and do some testing. Hi guys, back again. Well, that was a really interesting listen back that I just had there, both through the laptop speakers and through the headphones. I've also had a good 5-minute conflab with Jamie sitting there behind the camera. And I have to say, the results have been quite surprising in certain aspects. So let's just go through them one by one. So I started with the AKG, and listening back to the results, I was really impressed with the fullness of the sound. It was a nice warm representation of the sound. I felt like it demonstrated all of the frequencies, from the low frequencies through the mids and through the highs, and just generally a nice warm sound, as I say. So let's just keep it at sound right now, and I'll talk about other aspects in just a moment. So moving on to the iSolo mic, I found the sound on this one was a little bit more compressed. It was a nice general sound, but it did this a little bit more. In fact, actually looking at the sound files on the computer, I noticed that the sound wave was just a little bit more compressed as well. It didn't have the same peaks and troughs that we got out of these other mics here. So a nice-ish sound, but a little bit more compressed. Also, a little bit more key noise on this one than the others, which is something that you will have to contend with clip-on mics, because clearly the microphone is clipped onto the bell of the saxophone, so all those vibrations are transmitting through into the mic and coming out through your sound system. But I noticed just a degree more key noise with the iSolo over and above the others. But you don't want to get too much of a bee in your bonnet about key noise, because you're always going to hear it when you sound check. You hear this key noise, particularly if you've got the sound up loud through your monitors or whatever. But then the moment you start playing with other musicians, often that kind of thudding sound disappears into the wash of sound. So that's the iSolo, and then moving on to the DPA. I should say this is my own personal mic. I've been gigging with this for a while, which is why it was really intriguing for me to compare it against these other three, just to find out what I've been doing through all these years and whether I've actually been on the right mic. And I do like the sound of the DPA. It's got a nice clarity to it. That was the main characteristic I would describe. It's very pure. It's on the slightly brighter sound to me, compared to perhaps the AKG, which has a more earthy representation overall. So I found it a little brighter, very clear, very good quality sound, but slightly brighter than the AKG perhaps. And then moving finally on to the most expensive option, the AMT LS mic. Just a really nice representation of sound. You could hear all the frequencies, all the nuances, all the details. It sounded very full, very fat. So sound-wise overall, I would actually say, yes, the LS, the most expensive mic, gets it for me, but just behind it in second place, really, we have the AKG. I was superbly impressed with the sound quality. Obviously, let me know what you guys think. You're going to make your comments, I'm sure, and listen on your headphones as I've done, and through your laptop speakers, however you want to do it, and let me know what you think. We've all got different sets of ears, but for me, these two are quite close to one another, but the AMT just gets it, even though it's quite considerably more in price than the AKG. Just a few other aspects to discuss then. So in terms of practicality, I really love the AKG again. It's very solidly designed. This feels really robust, this adjustable section here. The clip is really sturdy, fits on the saxophone well, and not only can you bend it this way, but it also moves in incrementations this way as well. So lots of options for securing to your sax, so I love that side of things. We also have great customer feedback on these mics as well. I think generally AKG is a well-known brand. People love these mics, and they are used on a wide scale around the planet. Now, with the second one, the iSolo, I have to say it's a really lightweight and sleek design. This clips beautifully onto the bell of the saxophone. It's very practical, easy to use. This bends around into position in a very satisfying way. So I love the fact it's so lightweight, and this is brilliant. Now, of course, this one is slightly different to the other three in that we're using a wireless setup here. It only comes in a wireless format. So this is the transmitter, tiny little lightweight transmitter, and we were transmitting to the receiver when we were doing our recording, which looks like this. Now, you may notice that this doesn't look like an ordinary receiver. It's got quite a few settings on it. So we've got here EQ, we've got treble, we've got gain, we've got effects from running through 1 to 8, we've got a blend from dry to wet, and there's a master control. There's quite a lot going on here. I'm not going to go into this right now because this isn't a specific review on the iSolo mic, but just to say that the player has got this extra control over and above what you would normally have with a standard microphone system, whereby you're relying entirely on the sound engineer to do it. You can actually make these adjustments yourself, so long as this is in close-ish proximity to where you're performing. So when we were recording there, we just had everything set as flat as possible to make the test as realistic as possible. So it's a really cool piece of kit, this, and the whole setup is just very tidy and very well put together by the designers at Cloud Vocal. So moving on to the third one, we have the DPA, which I should say at this point, I've actually been gigging on the DPA 4099 for a number of years and have loved it, and it's done me proud. And even though I've slightly worried about the slightly flimsy wire, and as you can see here, it is on the thinner side, it's not broken on me once. So I've always worried about how vulnerable it is, but it's been fine. It's slightly less practical than the others in the sense that I find that this it feels just a little looser at this hinge point, and you do need to kind of cram it into the joint here to make sure that it's stable and it's not going to kind of flop to a lower position, and then you need to have it in a nice stable position when you're playing. You don't want to be worrying about this if you're going to be jerking the sax about, for example. So there's a little bit going on there. It's a little clunky, but once you've got it set, it's fine. So that's the DPA, perhaps slightly less practical than the others, but it's okay. And then finally, moving on to the most expensive one, the AMT. They've thought of everything in terms of the design. It's properly robust and robotic-like in terms of its all of these joints and screws and what have you. This clamp here, there's a little section here that allows you to clamp onto the lip of your bell, so it's not going to go any place, and you've got adjustments in different directions. It's very solid, very secure. It looks really cool as well with this this circular thing going on here. The goose mount thing is brilliant. It bends and doesn't move. It holds its position, so no expense spared there, which you'd expect. It's the most expensive mic, so practically brilliant, and of course it sounds great as well, as mentioned. So there you have it, guys. In conclusion, this was a really interesting test for me, and I'm going to say that AMT comes out on top, as you might expect. It's the most expensive mic, but you can see why, for good reason. But actually, as mentioned several times, I've been really impressed with the AKG along the way. I think it comes in a very close second spot behind the AMT, and it's just that spread and fullness of sound that you wouldn't normally expect from a mic at this price point, so very impressed. And then the other two slot nicely in the middle. Nice pure sound on the DPA, so I've been gigging on that for a while. I'll probably stick with it for some time because I know what I'm doing with it and it's absolutely fine. And then this one really, even though the sound for me was a little bit more compressed, it was still a good sound. And it's just a lot of fun. As I mentioned, this is so lightweight and easy to use. And then you can have a lot of fun with this as well, playing around with the different settings. Perhaps if you're doing just a solo gig or something and you want to vary your sound as you're going through the set, you can muck around with this to your heart's content and have a lot of fun. So there you go. That is my conclusion on the 4 basic mics that we list and sell here at sax.co.uk. Let us know what you think in the comments, which ones you think sound best, anything else you might want to mention. But for the time being, that's it from me. I will see you on another video.